term billionaire has become so common that its enormity is often overlooked. To give it context, an average American would have to work for 20,000 years without spending any money to accumulate that amount of wealth. Have you ever heard of someone who is even richer than Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos? Well, Mansa Musa is the richest man who ever lived. However, there have been other rulers in history like Augustus Caesar, William the Conqueror, and Akbar of India, who had control of vast amounts of wealth. Although, we can estimate and describe their wealth in words, but Mansa Musa is different. He was extremely wealthy, and historians believe that his net worth was even more than the official estimate of 500 billion. Some people describe his wealth as being impossible to calculate. There are paintings of him sitting on a throne made of gold, holding a cup and a scepter made of gold, and wearing a crown made of gold. To understand how rich he was, imagine a massive amount of gold, and then double it multiple times. Elon Musk's wealth is nothing compared to Mansa Musa, who was a very wealthy African king in the 13th century. He was so rich that his gifts ruined a country's economy. Mansa Musa didn't even expect to have such wealth because he wasn't supposed to become the ruler of his dynasty. His older brother was the chosen heir, but he became obsessed with finding out what was beyond the Atlantic Ocean. In 1312, Abu-Bakr, the older brother of Mansa Musa, led a huge fleet of 2,000 ships with people from all walks of life to explore the sea. However, he did not come back from this expedition. Some people think that Mansa Musa might have been behind his brother's disappearance. They believe that Mansa Musa was greedy for power and had his brother killed so he could take the throne. According to this theory, Mansa Musa made up the story of his brother's voyage and disappearance as a cover-up for his evil plan. Of course, this account is widely contested, and most historians agree that Musa had no hand in any conspiracy for the throne. We can only guess how Musa felt about the fact that his brother completely disappeared one day, but it meant that he now ruled one of the richest empires in the world. Who wouldn't want to wake up one day and suddenly be king? Mansa Musa became the 9th leader of the Mali Empire and was given the title of emperor. He was a very skilled leader and won every battle he fought. Under his rule, the empire grew and expanded to include 24 cities, such as Timbuktu. The kingdom became very large, covering 2,000 miles from the Atlantic Ocean to what is now Niger, Senegal, and Mauritania. However, Mansa Musa's true accomplishment was not just his success on the battlefield. Mansa Musa's empire became very wealthy because he focused on mining gold and salt. He also traded elephant ivory, which added to the wealth of his empire. Many territories joined his empire willingly because they knew their quality of life would be better. While European nations were struggling with civil wars and a lack of resources, the African continent was flourishing. At one point, Mansa Musa's empire had over half of the world's wealth. This made his empire very rich and added to the emperor's wealth. Mansa Musa was a ruler who was well known for his generosity. However, his acts of kindness had unintended consequences when he visited foreign lands. He embarked on a grand pilgrimage to Arabia in 1324 to show off his enormous wealth to the world. It was the most lavish journey in history, with 60,000 people, including men, women, and slaves. The camels carried huge amounts of pure gold, while the slaves were dressed in white Persian silk and adorned with shiny jewelry that sparkled in the sun. They traveled over 6,500 kilometers, and anyone who came across them during this time would know the king's name and what he set out to do. But once he reached Cairo, the capital of Egypt, things started getting a little rough. According to historical texts, Musa was invited by a deputy of the Sultan Al-Nasir to meet. When Al-Nasir offered Musa and his party a place to stay, in return, Musa left a piece of his wealth there. He gave away so much gold that it flooded the entire city, from the markets to the royal palace to even the slums. Everyone had piles of gold at home. However, this caused the value of gold to drop suddenly, which destabilized the economy. Gold was an important trade material in the region, and Mansa Musa's extravagant display had a huge impact on it. Modern sources estimate that his actions caused about $1.5 billion in economic losses across the Middle East. Mansa Musa was extremely lavish with his spending, especially when it came to his own kingdom. After returning from Mecca, He brought back several Islamic scholars, some of whom were descendants of the Prophet Muhammad. He also hired a talented poet and architect named Abu Ishaq and paid him over 200 kilograms of gold to build the famous Jingariber Mosque in Timbuktu. In today's money, that amount would have cost over $8 million. Despite being built only from wood and mud bricks, the mosque was sturdy and remained in use for over 500 years. The city of Timbuktu flourished under Mansa Musa's rule and became a hub of education, arts, and literature. The Sankore University attracted scholars from all over the world, making it the El Dorado of Africa. Mansa Musa's reputation as a wealthy and generous ruler spread globally after his pilgrimage. By the 14th century, he had even been included in the 1375 Catalan Atlas, an important navigational tool for medieval Europe. The atlas depicted Mansa Musa sitting on a throne with a gold scepter and crown, holding a gold nugget in his hands. He had become a legend, and not just for his wealth, but also for starting the tradition of education in West Africa and cultivating natural resources that contributed to the wealth of his country. Mansa Musa worked hard to ensure that his legacy would be remembered for generations to come. But why none know him? That's because after he died, his sons were not able to keep the empire together. Smaller states started to break off and become independent, which led to the empire's decline. Then, the arrival of Europeans and colonization of Africa meant that the history of the medieval period would only be seen through the eyes of the West. Unfortunately, this meant that Mansa Musa's accomplishments were not widely known outside of Africa. But despite not being remembered by everyone, Mansa Musa had done more for his nation than many other rulers were able to. Not only is he the richest man in history, but under him, the Mali Empire not only became the richest country in the whole world but also became a center for learning and art.